Peter and I first met at a poetry reading in Letchworth in 1970. I had just returned from a year on teaching exchange in the States, and he was teaching locally. We hit it off immediately, and what has followed is half a century of friendship, conversation and collaboration. The conversation has, needless to say, been about poetry, and our admiration for the work of Graves, Auden, Frost, Delamere, and others with whom we share a relish for the surprise of discovery, the celebration of things being various, and a dedication to poetic craft and principle. One of those others is the American Richard Wilbur, and one of his observations, with which I know we both agree, is that the strength of the genie comes of his being confined in a bottle. Peter's poems are a fine demonstration of this, in that their attentiveness to formal structures is never a constraint, but always a liberation. He has written somewhere that history is a texture of webbed silences, but the texture of his poems, their perspectives of everyday life, memory, land and thoughtscapes, present and past, are uniquely eloquent. As for our collaboration, it has been as editors, handset printers and publishers. Having learned about fine printing under the guidance of a local printer, John Myatt, we produced a series of single poems with illustrations based on the format of Faber's Ariel series. For these we approached poets we admired, and we continued to do so as we went on to establish our own Mandeville Press as a cottage industry of printing and assembling hand-stitched pamphlet collections. The lion's share of the work was done by Peter in his own cellar on the press he had installed, though I was an enthusiastic assistant, setting up type and sharing in editorial decisions. I have always admired Peter's readiness to take risks and his sense of adventure as a poet, publisher, and since 1990, the rescuer and refurbisher with his partner and wife Margaret of their beautiful, welcoming home in Norfolk, which my late wife Mary and I regularly visited. Peter, it has been a joy and a privilege to know and work with you. And now, 50 years after that fortuitous chance encounter, to be eagerly awaiting your new book. Ghosts are a poet's working capital, you once wrote, and throughout your writing life you have made them welcome and done them proud. Thank you from your admiring friend, Le Vieux Taupe.
Invitation to view. Pity you didn't know it in our day. We might have found you sitting by the live in a sleepy summer, or in scented May, at lunch with Peter, looking for a rhyme he'd kicked into the long grass by the pond, and Margaret, tickling some old cat. Yes, fond of desultory stuff as life went by, with frogs and flowers and idiotic talk, and trees shuffling their green about the sky. We're sorry that you couldn't break your walk, unlatch the gate, and find the front door wide, and checkered shade, bric-a-brac inside. Find rooms life found itself too short to dust, and cobwebs that went back an age or two. Spot a Revilius plate, spot Shakespeare's bust. Old brochures say just what old brochures do. A house of books and pictures. Cakes and tea, a pleasant might have been, but let it be. We'll watch you pattering at us from the lawn, until the faces hidden by our names turn into whispers, rustles, all forlorn as maidens, crumpled cows, and played out games. Don't tell us who you are. We needn't know. The dark will tell you when it's time to go. Gifts. A stable. Add a starlit carapace, a mimic theatre, one wall gone astray, open to such elements as compose our room. The time? Oh, Quattrocento. Place? Let's say some beast house near Firenze. Shepherd boys, one necklaced by a lamb. He has no proper name. Unlike those gaudy cardboard potentates, still grimy from the ways by which they came to spread their scents and lustres for a child walling in half-light, cornering his eyes on Jib the cat, slinking through stinking straw to drop a dead mouse where the manger lies. The Enchanted Places, for John Fuller, the story of my childhood. Were you there when the moonlight split in two to let the bombers through? The angled iron gun dogs began to growl and bark from their leashes in the park. That fury, that crescendo, that despair, tearing gobbets from the sky, just as they'd been trained to do, while night slid down the chimney pots to thicken up the dark. Were you there? Were you there when the street took so much rain there was water on its brain, and a stranger put his arm round your imaginary friend? Did you know it was the end? Parcel, string and sealing wax, but nothing there to share? Could they kiss away the solitudes of pain when you spun your paper boats away to lands of let's pretend? Were you there when from the rock pool sand they brought you back to land? The sun, scorched on the sky, had other fish to fry, and though dead you could not die. When they sent a dreadful message to the kite-tails in blue air, did worm casts coil about the beach in a host of ampersand? Did anybody, everybody, think they had to cry? Were you there when the house of ought and must, of anxiety and dust, tried to loose a tongue-tied love, but a raven-hearted dove who knew push must come to shove, pecked the words out and picked the letters bare, while the cold moths in the box room went to rust. Did the crickets, the kittens in that bucket share that love? Yes, I was there, glitter-dazzled by the places where shellfire left its traces, and the coloured scrunch of living that crawled across the floor. Now the heart grows raw. Grey tides crinkle. Things falter on the stair. I wave to other children with their cold and missing faces. My fingers feeling for their light through myriads of war. Advent. Yes, they say, how the days draw in, how all our summers gutter down, until the light can hardly lift itself to find life crouching in its nest of fur, the late fruit shriveled, the charred wick twisting away from the ghost of flame. Darker still, where a dead house puts bricks of broken cloud together, and children you can no longer name share loneliness with twigs and birds, the dry abrasions of a missing gate, awkwardly swung between then and now. Step into the night beyond the kitchen door. Let rooms decked with heat and laughter greet the cold, astonished air as your breath feathers you out, and further than those bleak reaches hope must traverse under the dispositions of a star. Goodman's garden. Where did they all go? Thickets of love and pain. They rustle in a dry light, and skeins of corvidae traipse to a dusk roost. Time is a flipbook. Lift your dear hand and feel the pages purr. Years fan by in their lost variegations of green, gold, brown, and an old cat, white as a child's Christmas, trots his careful way through his once kingdom. The Pokerwork Owl, 1944. Cows moan in grey, a broken lullaby from soft throats grazing on the early stars. The big merlins growl in Lincolnshire, and a boy arranges his shadow squadrons, hunched in an icy cockpit. He rides to join the thunders drawling overhead. Night-scented stock eases up its pallor. A prying moon makes ape face in his mirror. He springs out of bed, pads to the stairhead, black contrapuntal voices. A door slams. its thrill shaking the house as a freight train rearranges the frontiers of the night in jostles of buffered metal. Pinned to the wall, a pokerwork owl sees nothing, says less. Shrouded cotton curdles into absence. His curtains cross themselves for luck. The Shimmering Cat. For Bertie, the snow-spotted Bengal. Legs far too long to reach the ground, so stepping high, he walks on air. Sand, cinnamon, and rumpled lace weave the coat this cat must wear. His dapples shift like water rings, bounced from the path by summer rain, or clouds which sail their sunlit cusps down drying puddles. Dyed in grain, that shivering camouflage, it must hide the secret cat beneath the skin. Mortality transfigured there, an angel dancing on a pin, with flick-flack tail and haunted stare, with eager eyes and lime-white throat. He sings of life in the greening year, the cat that wears the Joseph coat. A six-spot burnet sprawled out beside this roadside pole, and nothing in the air but the same and same again. The lightest trill inside his crooked arm, inside the pole, inside the air, which will stay the same. A blue softening to ache, a dream strung on between, over the wide sky, whose high, sweet song lines mesh through a boy's head, caught in a June dream, which flicks away from the song, the sky, to the road's verge, grass high and dry, where a six-spot burnet sways and sways again, a shiver, a tremble, stirring the crinkled wings, which dry bright metals, as the boy's head sways to the milky ache, to the dazzle of light, the tarred verge, the trill, the shiver, the song, as moths unsheath summer from a pale cocoon, stumble and purr away into the light, into the swaying head, the ache, into the song. Take your bow for David Horowitz at 70. Hats, periwigs, or firearms say, someone, it seems, has gone away. And who are those left standing where applause hangs scribbled on the air? A black bag props a tilted chair. House lights bring up the day. What is a ghost, that go-between, who slipped us on from scene to scene, who stitched the living to the dead, who turned the fire in someone's head to flesh and blood? A dance that said more than cold words could ever mean. Off, off, you lendings, and for now, back to your cupboard, love. Allow the boards to be but floorboards. All the fear-struck room, the painted hall, to find out moonlight, wait their call. Come, David, take your bow.